Hello everyone, my name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that focus on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions on all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures in order for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, that also translates as recreating and co-creating environments both socially and politically that enable our children to thrive. Now, for those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday, and we actually just dropped a thought piece on community this past Sunday discussing the cultural fabric and defining the cultural fabric of community. So definitely be sure to check that out once you're done watching this segment. Also, for those of you who are on the go, we are available on 6 different podcast platforms. So if it is the case that you're out and about, definitely be sure to take us with you. Our links are available in the description down below. As is the convention, definitely be sure to subscribe. Hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. If you like these discussions and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And this week our topic of discussion is mental wellness. And as you see in the description below, we're going to talk about the benefits of planning in for change. And I think this is really important and not something that I overlook. For those of you who've been following the channel for a while, I am someone who's very type A. I'm very organized, and I like to be very mindful about where I put my time and energy, and sometimes I verge on overly efficient in that sense. And I find that it's very important that when too many things happen on autopilot, if I can go through most of the routines in my day without feeling any real need to dig deep or to think about what it is that I'm doing, like if everything becomes very sort of automatic, then that for me is a signal for change. That's a signal that I need to plan in a little bit of change into my routine. And this is to excite things. This is to keep myself stimulated, to keep myself engaged, and to avoid accidentally finding myself into a rut. And I think that this is so important. While I find that if there's a spectrum of habit building and of planning and organizing, I'm pretty extreme on that spectrum. But I think that even for those who are at the other end of the extreme and aren't super into structure, I think there are aspects of our lives that make our lives easier if they're structured. And I think that change is something that is good for the soul. I think change is good for the soul. And that's something that people will either lean into if they're really not about structure and they live a life of spontaneity. But I think that that is also something that we can buy into for those of us who plan for spontaneity, who are spontaneous but sort of preemptively. So I want to provide you the 3 major areas where I have to plan in for change, because I find that the routines are so comfortable, they're so familiar, that if I don't plan to make a change to those routines, I could easily do the same thing for far too long and then find myself unenergized and unmotivated and disengaged and not really understand why. And it's because just too much of my day is happening on autopilot. And I think that it's very important that we're stimulated by our days. And there are things that start out at the beginning when we begin a new ritual or when we begin a new habit. They start out as being very stimulating. But then as our routines or weeks or months sort of get built in and continue, they can become really the reason why we feel disengaged and disconnected, just because we're not having that same degree of cerebral activity or of stimulation as a byproduct of engaging with that activity. So I'm going to talk couple of the areas where I've realized that I need to be very mindful about when I switch things up and I plan in for change. Typically, I will plan in for change on a quarterly basis. I love to make changes with the seasons. It's kind of like spring cleaning or bringing out your winter clothes for the winter or your summer clothes for the summer. For those of you who live in a seasonal country, like the seasons are a great indication that, change is upon us. But for those of us who live in a fairly static climate, it's just important to create a little mix up in our routine just to stimulate us and to kind of keep the senses on edge, keep the senses sharp. So here are the areas where I find that I need to be very mindful about switching the routine up. And again, I mentioned that I typically switch things up based on quarterly changes because I like to make, quarterly check-ins with myself. But sometimes your body lets you know when it's time for a change. It could be sooner than a quarter. It could be even sooner than a couple of weeks. And it's just very important to be in tune to our body, in tune to our emotions to know when we should make a change instead of planning in for change very systematically. I think sometimes change is required organically. But the first area where I need to be very mindful and make a point to create change is my morning workout routine. And this is very important because my morning workout routine is how I get energized. So I don't really need this routine to be intense, but I need it to wake me up. So generally speaking, if I do some strength training with some cardio, a mixture of those two things, it's a really great amplifier to my morning. But sometimes if I don't switch up the movements, at least I could do the same morning routine for a year. And I am guilty of this just because it gets so comfortable. But when I find if I'm doing it and I don't even have a sheen of sweat, I'm not responding physically to my morning workout routine, then it's just kind of motion without real results because my body is used to these motions, it's used to these exercises, it's kind of doing it for the sake of doing it. I feel awake, but it's not giving me the same effect. So I'm not getting the heart rate. I'm not working out my cardio the way I want to. I'm not actually building strength. I'm just reinforcing the strength that I already have. So I switch it up. So I'm actually in the process of switching up my cardio routine. I've realized that with the amount of yin yoga that I'm doing, some of my morning routine actually counteracts with some of the movements that I'm doing in my yoga. And I also realized that given current circumstance, I've really not been very good at keeping up with my cardio. And I found that my cardio could do better. So I decided that my morning routine needs to be cardio infused. So I'm right now infusing way more cardio bits in my morning routine, just blasts of energy throughout the regimen to kind of spice things up a bit. And this is surely going to change when the fall comes around, but it's something I'm very excited to do. And I actually just tried my new cardio infused morning routine today and it felt wonderful. Just a little bit more movement, a little bit more hyperactivity, does the soul so well in the morning. Even if you're just kind of jumping around. And I like to do those hops that are back and forth. They help lean out your calves. And I find that, it's great to do that in the morning because this is a simple movement, but it gets the heart rate up really quickly if you're kind of going really fast and up and down. You can even go side to side. And it's not super complicated because I do find that I can't do complex motions in the morning because this is part of how I wake myself up. I've drunk my water, but I'm not going to do complicated movements and risk twisting my ankle. So that's the first area where I like to make sure I plan in for change. And I'm very conscientious that change needs to be part of that regimen to ensure that I'm always keeping my body stimulated and therefore myself and my energy levels up. The second area where I find I can get into a routine rut is food. I am someone when I really like something to eat, if there's something that I'm eating that I enjoy, I can eat it every day. I can eat it every day and I won't get sick of it. It's very rare that I'll get sick of it. In fact, I'll miss it if there is a day that I don't eat it. And I realize that there's nothing wrong with change. And since I've made a big change to my lifestyle, I'm living more in the countryside and things are much slower paced. I don't need to have as efficient of a morning regimen as I had before. It's okay for me to switch things up. And I'm starting to enjoy having changes in my morning routine, changes in the food that I eat in the morning. And I find that my regimentedness, I find that I'm very regimented about food, mostly to do with my food intolerances and my allergies. I was a child who grew up with a lot of food allergies. So there was always a risk associated with trying out new foods. And I think that became, I have a love for the food that I know is safe, but also this food aversion just because I've had so many bad experiences trying new foods. But this is the new day, and I also have done food screens. So for those of you who aren't familiar, there's a difference between doing an allergy test and a food screen. And an allergy test is really about like very serious anaphylactic responses to different foods and different environmental factors that your body interacts with. Whereas if you do a food screen, it actually is a broader range of foods, so over 300 foods tested, and it will even outline like the foods that you're mildly intolerant to. So you get a sense of the foods your body absolutely loves, no matter like you can eat them every day, your body loves it. And you also get a sense of what you need to eat in moderation, so once or twice a week, and the things that you should never eat. So the things that like create maybe asymptomatic anaphylactic responses. So anaphylactic responses in your body, so it builds up a war in your body, but you just don't have the anaphylactic shock associated with it. So I will recommend to everyone to get a food screen. This is how I discovered my gluten intolerance, because I was at the cusp of having celiac disease, but because I was below that line, they were unable to classify me as having celiac disease, but I was suffering the effects of it. So I fully recommend a food screen for everyone. And in fact, I did 3. I did a food screen and an environment screen, as well as a chemical screen. And it even helped me figure out what detergents I should be using, because there are some detergents based on the chemical mix, they just don't do as well with your skin than others. And all of these systems, like environmental, chemical, and food, all of these are things that our body interacts with on a day-to-day basis. And having a sense as to what your body is more receptive to just means that you're not having to deal. Your immune system isn't up and going all the time, all day long. Back to the point, like, because I have this food screen, I no longer can use my fear of the food like harming me and having an anaphylactic reaction as a reason why I don't venture off the beaten course and eat foods that are a little bit more foreign to me. And I actually really like being experimental with food. I love food, actually. I'm just someone who's recognized early in my life that food doesn't necessarily love me back. But I mentioned in an earlier video that I had been plant-based completely for about a year and a half. And in April, I decided to try out different meats, turkey bacon being one of them. I was really missing that. And I really liked it. And I think I'm happy having a low meat diet and incorporating the meat that I like, and also giving myself the opportunity to be adventurous. So the meat that I generally don't eat, like I'm not someone who's very seafood oriented. I'm like, well, you know what? Like, let me experiment with seafood. Like, let me experiment with like different types of meats and different types of food that I haven't eaten, because variety is key in life. Sometimes we need a little bit of variety. We need to spice things up just to keep ourselves stimulated. And the last thing that I want to talk about planning in for change is activities. And I'm someone who's very activity oriented. I love to do different things that kind of stimulate me and that are interesting to me. But I can get into a rut with this because it's very easy for me to read. It's very easy for me to stick to activities that keep me to my screen, and also activities that involve like books, because I love reading, I love researching, and you don't really need to leave your home to do either of those different things. But I've learned that like it's important to incorporate different activities as part of your day-to-day as much as is feasible. And if it were in different times, if we were in these times, I would definitely be doing more rock climbing. I would be engaged in a lot more variety of different activities. But I always keep it top of mind to think about like how I'm going to mix up the activity that I engage with for, you know, the next cycle, for the next season, or what have you. And I like to do new things. Like I like to switch things up, and I'm very curious to try out different things that I haven't tried before. And it's very important, I think, for all of us to think about, you know, what activities we like to do that we gravitate towards that we could do without any effort, and what activities will help us step outside of our comfort zone. But I think it's very important that we plan in for change and that we don't find ourselves kind of lost in a sea of regularity. I think we can always infuse a little bit of spice in our life by thinking about the areas where we can switch things up, and then switching those things up and seeing how it feels, whether we respond well to it or not well to it, so on and so forth. So that was the first part of this video. For all of you who know, in my mental wellness videos, I typically love to do a stretch. And so we're going to do a quick little stretch in this video. So let's see you on the mat, and let's get a little hip flexor stretch in before we finish this video. See you in a bit. Hello everyone. So we're back here on the mat. I'm very excited. We actually haven't done any mat work in a really long time. So I wanted to start first in a seated position and just kind of straighten out the back. Let's take a couple of deep breaths. We like to breathe into the stomach. I'm a stomach breather, and I love taking deep breaths like into my chest, into my stomach, like full breaths where your stomach's expanding so you can really like get all of that oxygen into your bloodstream. All right, let's start with a one leg stretch. So we're gonna keep the left leg tucked in with our foot tucked in at our right hip, and we're gonna extend the right leg out. We're gonna lift the arms up, and we're going to bend to the side. First, we're gonna bend to the left side with the right foot up and the foot is flexed. We're gonna open up the side, take deep breaths into the side. Then we are going to come to the right. Again, open up your side, even if you can, like maybe put your hand behind your head and look up. Awesome. And then we're just going to lean straight over to the right. And breathe into your tummy. Deep expanding breaths. Amazing. So we're gonna come back to center, bring that leg in. And now we're gonna bring our left leg out and we're gonna bring our right foot to the inner part of our left thigh. We're gonna lift our arms up again and go right. We're gonna open up the side. Breathe deep into that side. We're gonna move over to the left. And again, if you wanna put that hand behind your head and look up to really open up your side. And deep breaths into the belly. Awesome. And now we're going to go forward. Couple more breaths. Awesome. So now we're going to bring both of our legs out as far out as we can go. And bring your arms up. And then go lean forward, but keep your hips, your sitting bones on the ground. And with each breath, go deeper, keeping both feet flexed. Awesome. We're going to slowly walk our way back up. Gonna close the legs together and we're gonna windmill the legs, just left to right, just loosening up any of the tension that we have there in the hips. And then what we're gonna do is we're gonna come onto our hands and knees and we're going to do a frog posture. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna open the legs, keep our feet at a 90-degree angle, and then we're going to lean forward. Now you don't want to be too far forward or too far back. You want to press your hips into the ground, getting your muscles to release tension in your hips. And just breathe here. come up. We're gonna do, just gonna bring the hips in just a little bit. Great, and we're gonna step into our forward fold. And what I want us to do is lean to the right, stretching out the left inner thigh. And come back to center and lean to the left. I'm gonna do that 2 more times. I'm gonna at the center, lean to the right, center, lean to the left. 1 more time. Back to center, lean to the right, back to center, and to the left. And then what we're gonna do here is we're gonna rotate that leg out, feet pointing, your toes are pointing to the sky. We're gonna really sink into this posture. I'm gonna hold it here. And we're going to bring our foot back to the ground, bring ourselves around, and we're going to do the same on the left side. So point your toes up to the sky and squat down as far as you can go. Awesome. Back to center, keeping both hands on your mat. We're just gonna roll down with the knees. So keeping our hands on the mat, we're just gonna roll down, roll up, roll down, roll up. Amazing, roll down and roll up. Great, so let's come down to our seat, seated in the middle of our mat, and make our way slowly down to the ground, 1 vertebrae at a time. And we're going to bring our feet in to our chest and head into our feet. And you can even rock this side to side. And then bring your head down and lift your feet up. Sorry, I have a little fluff on my toe. Now lift your legs up. You want to straighten out your hamstrings. And keep these straight, or if you can, you're going to bring them up, over and around and touch the ground. It's a nice stretch, releasing your middle back. We're going to hold it here. Keeping those legs as straight as you can. Awesome, and then we're gonna roll slowly, 1 vertebrae at a time. All the way down to the floor. Awesome. We're gonna sit up, adjust ourselves a little bit. Bring your arms up, and then we're gonna go forward, reversing the initial move. Now, if you can't bring your hands all the way around to your feet, you can go up to your calf or your ankle, or you can go all the way down to your feet. And we're just gonna hold. Amazing. And then the last move that we're gonna do here is we're gonna come back to our backs, and we're gonna cross the left leg over the right leg like this. And then we're gonna bring our knees into the chest, and we're gonna grab our feet as though they're bicycle handles and pull them into the chest, releasing the right glute. So if the right leg is over the left leg, we're releasing the right glute here. We're gonna hold with each exhale, bringing those legs into the chest. Amazing. We're gonna do, because your legs are already in this position, we're gonna bring them down to the left, look over to the right, and a nice little spinal twist here. Great. Back to center, switch over the legs, bring them back into the chest, and then hold on to the legs as though they're handlebars, like a bike handlebars. And we're going to bring them into the chest, releasing now the left glute. Great, release. Bring it over to the side. I'm gonna have to move a bit because on my couch, there we go. Bring the arms out, look over. Awesome, so we're gonna release out of the position. Find yourselves back into a seated position on the mat. That felt wonderful. And just lift your up. Bring your hands down to center, and we can do that one more time. Lift your hands up. Bring them down to center. That was wonderful. So I love that we can stretch. Again, I'm not a certified yoga instructor, but we don't need to be certified to stretch together and get those hips moving, reversing some of the positions that we're in on a day-to-day basis. We're sitting a lot during the day, so it's important to get moving and to bring out the tension that lives in our hips. So again, happy to do that with you. I really enjoy our stretching sessions, and I'm looking forward to seeing you again soon. Enjoy the rest of your day, and if you're still here and if you've done this stretch with me, make sure you subscribe, make sure you hit that post notification bell, make sure you like, comment, share this segment, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Bye.
Just feel like no one's listening.